Hello, everyone. We'll give a bit of time to make sure everyone can come in. So just doing a sound check. If you guys can hear me properly, and you're welcome to post your comments and questions in the channel. They should be like a little chat box, and this chat box will be logged and available when you next replay this video. So do take note that, if you want to say something but you don't want it to be on the record, then probably should be using the chat. But for transparency reasons, we definitely want to make sure that all our stuff is available for the public record. So just making sure that can everyone hear me? Hello, Oscar. How are you? Hi, Patrice. Okay. Maybe Anwar AJ, could you just put one more reminder that this is starting so we can get a few more people in as well. Pasita. Okay. Oh, cat. Yeah, actually, that's the cat. I don't know. You can see the little cat licking herself there. Okay, let's get to it. I have to remember, this is a proper community meeting. So before we begin, there isn't any sort of like fixed agenda. I am assuming that everyone has kind of read like our development update and stuff like that. And I wanted to know, like, what kind of concerns that you may have of the project, anything that you would like to know. I'm basically, here for everyone to ask questions. Of course, I can't comment on, like, when price is gonna go up, but everything else is fair game. Hello Narasi, hello Huising. Yeah. So, okay. So I think I'm not sure if everyone has taken a look, but we recently released our Lelantus Spark paper. And this is our new privacy protocol that will be replacing Lelantus in the near future. So I guess first of all, remember when we first came out with Lelantus, we were talking about like moving towards something called Lelantus 2. And then now suddenly, we have changed things to kind of skip Lelantus 2 and move to something called Lelantus Spark. So I just kind of wanted to sort of explain what Lelantus Spark is about. We actually do have a more detailed video, which is almost 1 hour long, with me interviewing both Aram and Aaron, which kind of goes on a high level why we are doing what we're doing. But I just wanted to sort of cover this again if you are not aware what this is. So currently with Lelantus, as you are aware, we take coins, we burn them, and then we redeem them for brand new ones with no previous transaction history. And you can do this with any sort of arbitrary amounts. There's no fixed denominations. But obviously there is still some information that is being exposed, and those are the amounts, right? So whenever you see an address, you see a Lelantus span, you can actually see the amounts appearing. So let me just show that. So for example, and remember, you can ask questions at any time. This isn't like a formal meeting, so you're welcome to like ask questions at any time. Hello, good girl. Why this is not loading. Okay, so currently with Lelantus as it is today, which is Lelantus version 1, you can see that yes, the source is hidden and the change is hidden, but you can see the recipient is receiving, 1.8 Firo or 2000 Firo here, right? So this amount is being leaked. So it does actually have some benefits in the sense that there is some auditability, right? But as obviously it's a privacy leak, right? Especially if you see the amounts, it gives quite a lot of information, but it's kind of like a good stepping stone towards the next step. Now, what Lelantus Spark actually does is that this address becomes some hidden address, and this amount is also hidden. So basically all that you see is basically hidden. Everything's hidden, right? So this is almost like kind of like ultimate privacy, right? And the other thing that we also want is to have a kind of like stealth addressing, or what we call Spark addresses, where we would have a special Spark address. And this Spark address is not like this. This is works like a regular Bitcoin address, right? And when you send into Spark addresses, when you cannot look up the Spark address on the blockchain. So that means when I paste it in, nothing shows up. So you cannot tie the address that I share to you publicly with an address on the blockchain. It is totally independent. So it looks really good on a privacy perspective, and you're free to share. You don't have to generate new addresses. Everything is done automatically as well. Now, we wouldn't be getting rid of these addresses yet because it requires a huge ecosystem change, but you will be able to send directly from transparent addresses into Spark addresses. So what that means is, for example, like right now, when I'm sending, okay, let's say I send it to, good girl, right? And let's say this is her address. You send it to her, she has 1.8 Firo, then she has to re-burn it, right? Do a Lelantus mint or anonymize her funds, and she has to use a private key to anonymize this. With Lelantus Spark, this isn't necessary at all. I can send this money directly into a Spark address, and that amount is will be sitting in her account. She doesn't have to re-anonymize it. It's already sitting in her address. So that offers a lot of privacy benefits. Now, this is also really important because so that means what we're trying to do is, with exchanges like Binance and Bittrex, Huobi, Gate, all this type of stuff, we're going to try to convince them to say like, okay, look, you want to keep your transparent addresses because they're really quick, they're really fast, and you don't require like huge infrastructure changes to do this. You can keep those type of things. You can keep those type of things, but now we would ask them, would you allow withdrawals directly to Spark addresses? That means that, let's say I withdraw from Binance, I can straight away go and anonymize it. So Cyanide Group has a great analogy. It's wrap addresses, but there's no need to send one normal transaction first. Yes, correct. There's no notification transaction, right? And this address can be shared freely. And on top of it, even with wrap addresses, you still need to press anonymize and it goes in, right? With Spark addresses, once you receive it, it's already anonymized. So this is like a huge usability benefit, and it allows us to build privacy-only wallets. So our intention is to kind of abstract away the transparent address. Yes, you can use the transparent address, but all our sort of like our default wallets and stuff like that, we'll just be using Spark addresses by default, but they can always send to transparent addresses, and hopefully exchanges will also allow receiving directly into Spark addresses. And that will really, really solve a lot of things. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds, where we kind of almost have mandatory, almost like having privacy on by default, but without without having to have an additional function to anonymize, which isn't great, right? And you have all the wrap addresses without the notification transaction. So as you can see, Lelantus Spark is actually it's a complete solution, right? And one of the benefits also of Lelantus Spark is that it's also designed to be modular. So one thing that we've been thinking about, once we kind of say like we're going down through the Lelantus Spark way, once we go through Lelantus Spark, then what? What happens if there's new technology that comes about? Let's say there's some new one out of many proofs that we can replace. It is designed to be a certain extent modular. So let's say there's a better type of zero knowledge proof. We can actually replace the one out of many proofs with the new type of whatever new ZKP proof that we can put in, and we enjoy all the benefits without having to do this whole infrastructure change. The previous Lelantus wasn't as modular, so which means that every sort of single component is tied tightly together, which has certain implications because it becomes quite hard to evaluate security because everything is kind of merged together. And also there's this, I kind of lost my train of thought by looking at the chat, but never mind. Okay, the questions is, are we going to have Spark addresses in Trezor Ledger and other hardware wallets? Now, technically, there is no reason why hardware wallets cannot support Spark addresses. We have designed Spark addresses to have to be able to delegate. So for example, like your Trezor is, your Trezor isn't going to be like really powerful, right? It's just this little thing. There's hardly any computing power inside. All you can do is like the most basic type of functions. Obviously, stuff like, Lelantus transactions is not going to be able to be computed on something like this. But because with the way that we design Lelantus Spark is that we can delegate that. So for example, obviously when you're interacting with a hardware wallet, you're connecting it to a computer, you're connecting it to a mobile phone, right? Or some other more higher powered device. Now, Spark can actually say that, okay, the computer, the mobile phone does all the complicated transactions, but kind of like the final signing is with the hardware wallet. So yes, technically there is no impediment to actually have hardware wallet support, and it is designed with this in mind. Whether Trezor and Ledger will integrate that's a separate question. But that's why we still retain the transparent addresses with the ability to maybe send directly to Spark addresses. So it's kind of like a best of both worlds, and hopefully, once we get to a certain market cap, it makes more sense to say like, okay, like, everyone's just going to be using Spark addresses. That's the end goal. But right now, there's so many stuff that kind of relies on the transparent addresses. Like you want to interact with any sort of DeFi breach, you want to do the atomic swaps, you want to do all this type of stuff. It all requires the transparent addresses, or else, it's going to take a huge ecosystem upgrade. Eventually, hopefully we'll get there, but we are like sort of transitioning in, but we want to make all our wallets just use Spark addresses and not really have to care about transparent addresses unless you really have to. But it makes it a lot simpler, right? It doesn't have to be like shielded and some other transparent amount. So I do think Spark addresses really, really, really improve privacy and also the whole user flow as well. So yes, Patrice has actually mentioned mobile wallets. I'll be definitely covering that as well. So I think I want to kind of talk a little bit because this was actually brought up in the channel earlier, and I actually wanted to address it. Let me go back to scene 1. Okay. All right. So I was, we were informed to say like, why should anyone bother with Firo, right? there, let's say, even if you care about like mandatory privacy, you can use Monero, or some people say pirate chain and stuff like that. Why are we even bothering developing a privacy protocol? Where does Firo fit in, right? Now, I think this is a great question, and I think it's very it's easy to kind of overlook what it is, unless I take the time to explain it. All right. So, okay, I'll get back to you, Huixing, but let me talk about this first. Okay, what was I trying to say? All right, why Firo is relevant? Okay, so first of all, actually, Monero in itself is actually kind of in a weird position, right? It's currently the leader in terms of market cap and utilization as a privacy cryptocurrency, but it relies on the CryptoNote, what they call ring CT model, and the ring sizes are only kind of like 11, right? So when the ring sizes are 11, that means you're only hiding each transaction has like a possible deniability of 10 others, right? And there was previously a proposal that was supposed to go ahead, which was called Triptych. And Triptych was supposed to bring that ring size to maybe 64 or 128, which is quite a big increase, right? That means from 11 to 64 or 128, and should give decent privacy as well. And for your information, Triptych was actually inspired by Firo's work in Lelantus, right? Of course, modified to work with the Monero model, but yeah. But right now, what's the problem is that now that has kind of hit a roadblock, because Triptych doesn't really have what we call efficient multi-signature. And what that means is that if you want multi-signature, and there are a lot of reasons why you want multi-signature. For example, you're a custodian or you're a business, you don't want one person holding all the funds. Or let's say you have some DEX applications, decentralized exchanges, which requires some sort of multi-signature operations. That cannot be done easily. Something like, if I'm not mistaken, like 7 to 11 steps. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's many steps to get a multi-sig working. Lelantus Spark does not have this problem because it is very, very simple multi-sig. So we don't have the issues with Triptych. So because of this, Monero is like, oh no, we may not move to Triptych because of this lack of multi-sig or lack of efficient multi-sig, because multi-sig is available, just very inefficient. What should they move to? And now, actually Lelantus Spark and one other protocol, which is also actually quite similar to ours. It was actually, I would argue, actually inspired by our work as well, called Seraphis, that are in contention to kind of like go into Monero. But we have the advantage that we're just starting. We don't have to inherit the existing Monero address structure. We're starting from scratch, so we can come up with our own Lelantus Spark structure, right? So that's kind of a huge benefit. And so that means if Monero were to actually adopt Lelantus Spark, they would have to throw away all their existing addresses and find some way to move to the new address structure, which is a huge ecosystem change. Well, we don't have to do that. Similarly, we are always going to be looking at much larger anonymity sets. So we're looking at anonymity sets between 32 to 65,000. So, this beats hands down like 11 or even 64 or even 128, right? It's like, yeah, it's like huge sets that we think should be good enough, right? So yeah, you may be able to use Monero today, but they don't have a really clear path forward. We do. We are in a good position to kind of step into that, and at least on a technological basis, I do think that we are doing something that's really meaningful, and we are well positioned to do so. then okay, what about pirate chain, right? You know, mandatory by default ZK snarks, global anonymity sets and stuff like that. And great, you know, of course, like, you know, let's kind of like, you know, look past to say that, okay, you know, their distribution is like, you know, almost fully allocated in 3 years, mined by ASICs. That's okay, you know, that's their decision, right? But just on the pure privacy perspective, what they are is basically reliant on Zcash technology. And what that means is that, you know, Zcash, you know, if they discover any vulnerability, if they have any sort of like, you know, issues, they have to rely for Zcash to disclose to them. And I think there's a very big difference between currencies that build their own tech and really like get into the guts versus those that just implement it, right? There's like, you know, 101 projects that implement Monero. There's 101 projects that implement, well, not 100, maybe like 20, 30 projects that use ZK snarks or so, right? But they're always reliant almost on the parent project, on disclosures and stuff like that. It's generally one way with some very, very small exceptions where the smaller projects contribute back. And I think as Firo, we shouldn't want to be in that position where we are reliant on the generosity of other projects to disclose stuff, right? Obviously, all our development is open. We are collaborative. You know, if other people want to implement it, we would, you know, I wouldn't say like help them code it, but we definitely will be around to encourage it. You know, we do want to see Lelantus Spark technology being utilized. So I think that's a very, you know, and again, you know, Lelantus Spark, unlike like ZK snarks, doesn't have trusted setup, doesn't use any fancy, you know, circuits, doesn't use any fancy cryptographic assumptions. These are, I would say there is a beauty in having very simple constructions. And what happens if ZK snarks has an issue or has at least there's this alternative, right? That's so much simpler that still gives really, really high privacy with not as much complexity. So I do think definitely, you know, we are very well positioned to be a leader in privacy coins, right? Now, I guess the other question is, all right, should we be a privacy coin? I noticed some stuff there, you know, when are you going to implement smart contracts? When are you going to do DeFi and stuff like that? And we've also seen other projects, especially, you know, now the hot words are DeFi, NFTs, you know, and now privacy, DeFi plus NFTs, right? I mean, we get it, right? It's a nice hype. And I'm not saying that, I'm not putting down DeFi or NFTs. I do think there is real value in these ecosystems. There's a lot of cool stuff that is being built. But as a project, unless you're Ethereum, which has like thousands and thousands of people, you cannot focus on everything. And even Ethereum cannot do privacy very well. Like, it's not set up to be private. You have like these addresses where you can just look it up and it's account based and everything's there, right? Every single interaction is even worse than Bitcoin because people generally do not keep on using new addresses. They only use 1 or 2 addresses, right? So, you know, can Ethereum do very, very good privacy? Not really. They can have the tech, but then the infrastructure is not set up for that, right? Similarly, is Firo set up to be, you know, this smart contract platform thing, right? And I think we really have to really think about this, right? Yes, we can technically build smart contract functionality into Firo. There were actually efforts in the past, right? And after a while, even though we could have deployed it, we decided, you know, this isn't a really good idea. And because, like, for example, like Qtum is a project that uses kind of like Bitcoin UTXOs to do basically Ethereum virtual machine, right? So what do you need to be a successful DeFi or smart contract platform? Okay, first of all, almost all the smart contract platforms now, even the new ones, all use Solidity or EVM stuff like that, right? Because if you want to develop your own language, your own thing, you need now to recruit programmers that will be willing to learn your language, right? So that's not easy, right? That means you have to be of a certain size, right? And not only just a certain size, you have to have a lot of money to be able to throw to encourage people to build on your platforms. So if you take a look at what's happening in the DeFi space, stuff like Solana, stuff like Avalanche, right? Because, a part of their supply is, unlike us, where it's only like 15% for the development fund and everything else goes to you guys, all these other currencies, there's a pre-sale amount, then there's like, exchange amount, there's a partnership amount, there's ecosystem development amount, there's incentive amount. The supply is divided in such a way that is quite centralized, but it means they can say like, okay, I'm going to use 20% of my supply to use it as incentives for people to build on it, right? And Firo isn't really set up to do that because, if we can decide what percentage of the allocation, every single thing, like if most of the percentage is like centrally allocated, what kind of makes us different than fiat currency, right? It's almost the same, right? The beauty of cryptocurrency is that there's no one entity that dictates who should get what, and in a way everyone has to work for their share. In this case, mining, hosting a masternode, being part of the infrastructure. And okay, yes, we have a dev fund, but we are also working, right? All of us have to work for it, right? It's not that we create shit out of thin air, right? So unless you're saying that, all right, Firo should have additional supply that's going to be used for this DeFi platforms, we don't have an incentive structure to be able to get people to build on DeFi. And it's going to be really hard to compete with people that have hundreds of millions of dollars. So what have smaller projects been doing that are trying to enter into DeFi? They usually just take EVM, which is the Ethereum virtual machine, and then say, okay, now we have smart contract functionality too, and you can port your existing Ethereum contracts over to us and enjoy using it on our platform with cheaper fees, blah, 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 stuff like Matic, stuff like all this type of stuff, it's all EVM, and Solidity as well. Solidity is, if you take a look, it is a great language, but also it's easy to get shit wrong, right? There's a lot of almost every other day or at least every week, you're going to hear about some DeFi hack, about some DeFi rug pull, right? It's not kind of designed to be like super secure, and that's kind of like also one of the drawbacks of having what we call a Turing complete programming language, right? There's a lot of stuff that can get wrong. Now just imagine it's already a full-time job to kind of make sure that all this DeFi ecosystem works correctly, and you have all this EVM stuff, right? And they have hundreds of millions of dollars. Now you're saying that, okay, let's add privacy to it, which sounds, privacy plus DeFi. But what happens if your DeFi, DeFi is still getting hacked every day, right? DeFi is still getting hacked all the time. Now, if you are introducing privacy at this stage, it does mean that okay, you don't even know you're being hacked. You don't even know how to do everything, right? It's like your systems are already being hacked. Now I'm going to add privacy so that you don't even know what's going to happen. I don't know whether we're actually ready right now for that. I think it's, eventually we'll get there, but I don't think that Firo should be a smart contract platform in itself. Instead, what we're doing is saying, no, it's not the saying that we are saying DeFi is crap. No, DeFi is really good. So instead of actually building that functionality within us, increasing the attack surface, diluting our focus, right? That means saying, we're doing this, we can't do everything else, right? Yeah, good. I mean, just go and do DeFi hack at least every week, right? Of course, there are smaller ones that get hacked that we don't really know about, but almost every week there is some DeFi platform getting hacked, rugged, and stuff like that, right? But instead, what our strategy is like, all right, let's focus on making Firo a private cryptocurrency. And then what we'll do is that we have bridges into all these existing smart contract ecosystems where the money is there, the activity is there. We don't have to go and reinvent the wheel. The incentives are there. We'll find partners to work with. Like, for example, last time when we worked with Sushi, that also worked well, right? And once we, you do all your DeFi stuff, you can pull it back up into Firo, and, you can, it's kind of like the currency behind it, right? It's not so much like we are the platform to do everything, right? Now, Elysium does actually have, it's a tokenization layer. It's not a full-blown smart contract thing. So yeah, you create your own tokens. You can, you can even like trade them on dexes and stuff like that. You don't actually need smart contract for decentralized exchanges. But you will be able to create tokens. They can be stable coins. They can be all sorts of things. They can be voting tokens on the Elysium layer that would enjoy Firo's privacy tag, like Lelantus or Lelantus Spark, Dandelion, blah, 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 and all that sort of stuff. And we think that's a more conservative approach that we don't have to be constantly like maintaining, right? And like is this huge infrastructure that we have to maintain. But instead, we have this Elysium layer that you can use your tokenization stuff. We have the DeFi bridges that we are bridging into other DeFi platforms like Ethereum, Binance Smart Chain, Solana, whatever. We're working on this, right? It's not that easy. Everyone wants bridges. So this is kind of why we have decided to say, all right, it's not to say that we're anti-DeFi, but we have to be focused into what we do, or else we'll do none of it well. Now, there's a lot of people, that have named other projects. I'm not going to name them here, but just to give some examples is, okay, I'm going to answer the other questions later, but like they say, okay, this one uses this technology plus DeFi plus NFT, whatnot. Why aren't we doing that? Right? And that's why I don't really like those comparison charts where it's like tick, 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 tick. It's like, oh, privacy, yes. DeFi, yes. Or NFT support, yes. Blah, blah, blah. Yes, you can tick all of this, but it does not assess the quality of each of those components, right? I can say, yeah, I got DeFi, even though no one's using it, or it's a shitty form of DeFi. Oh, yes, I got privacy, but it's not very good privacy. I'm doing it kind of half-ass, right? And a lot of these platforms actually take very big shortcuts. For example, there are many of these projects that use something called Intel SGX. And SGX is kind of almost like I don't know how to explain it in the way. It's like a secure enclave where things happen in it where outsiders cannot see. Which sounds great, right? They're like, oh yeah, why can't we use Intel SGX? Or even people say, oh, we're promoting partnership with Intel, right? Okay. First of all, do we really want to work with a single hardware provider, right? Intel SGX requires proprietary hardware. I need to use Intel hardware to run my stuff. That's already like a huge, right? It's like almost saying that you can only mine my stuff with one brand. That really, really sucks. That means now we are at the mercy of Intel, right? If there's something wrong, all right? SGX is also not open source. We can't really know exactly what's really happening into it. There's some proprietary stuff inside there. And if you take a look, just Google Intel SGX vulnerability. Every year, there are new vulnerabilities being found in SGX. That means it's not as secure as they think it is, right? So that means you have to rely on a hardware vendor. You have to rely on Intel to make sure that this thing is secure. It is vulnerable. This is not really kind of in the spirit of what a decentralized cryptocurrency should be, which should be at least hardware almost like independent, right? Like, you know, I don't care if you use Intel, I don't care if you use AMD or whatnot, right? Or anything. So I do think that this is a very important thing, because everyone's like saying, oh yeah, they use this technology, whatnot. No, but that's actually a shortcut, right? Because they don't have to do any of the fancy crypto, because everything's already done within the secure enclave, right? So it's good for certain use cases. For some like, for example, I know Avalanche is using it as a bridge, but it's not for everyone, and it's especially not for privacy cryptocurrencies. Remember, privacy cryptocurrencies are going to be more targeted than other stuff, right? What happens if, like, you know, I don't know how they would do it, but, you know, they say Intel don't work with, make sure that your stuff don't work with Firo stuff. You know, we've seen, you know, signs of this happening already, like, you know, what has happened with Huawei, where, you know, like they can't be supplied with certain technologies. We don't want to be reliant on things. It's kind of similar, like why we build our own privacy protocols is so that we don't have to rely on others unless we get it completely, right? So I hope that kind of understands it. We don't want to try to have everything but be kind of shit at everything. We want to be one thing that is really good. And right now, yes, you know, privacy may not be hot, but think about it. If we believe cryptocurrency is going to go mainstream, cryptocurrencies really need privacy, right? How can you expect any sort of mainstream adoption if I can just look up your address and say, oh wow, you know, this person has XXX amount of money inside there? No one will be using it except for speculation and stuff like that. So I do believe, I mean, this is my personal viewpoint, is that, you know, the day of privacy will come. We need to make sure that we are well positioned to take advantage of that. Not trying to catch the hype that is now for projects that have already been building their smart contract, their NFT platforms already way before this, right? That is a ship that it is very hard for us to catch up on, and I don't think we should, right? We have cryptographers, we have, like, you know, really serious programmers, and next thing you tell them, oh yeah, you know, build NFTs. It's not a great idea to jump on that platform. We're not against it. We're definitely working towards trying to find some ways that, you know, we can sort of tap into the NFT, you know, the NFT culture, the NFT, you know, the people inside there, and find ways that we can sort of like, hey, you know, Firo and stuff like that. But we're not going to build NFTs, like, you know, well, we can technically build it on Elysium, but, you know, it's not going to be like super, like, it's not going to be really our main focus. So I hope people understand why we're doing what we're doing and why we aren't going to build full smart contract capability. Now, that being said, Pyramid is actually building a sidechain. That means you can bridge from Firo into this Firo VM sidechain that has all this smart contract capability. You can build your EVM and stuff like that. So the good thing about having the sidechain is that it is connected, but you can do whatever happens in the sidechain. You can mess it up and stuff like that. It will not affect the main chain. So we think this is a good way of kind of having some, like, you know, smart contract capability for whatever reason, you know, you think Ethereum or the rest are not good enough, but still kind of maintain like that sort of like separation between the two platforms. So I hope this kind of explains why I think that Lelantus Spark is really important, why we are doing why is it really important, and why we should not be like, oh yeah, you know, chasing every single hype train as it is moving. I think that's not right? We cannot be good at everything, and I don't think we should aim to be. So there are other projects that try to do that. We'll see how it pans out. I personally think that we should not be going down that path. That's just my 2 cents there. Of course, you know, if for whatever reason the community feels very strongly to say, oh yeah, you know, Firo should not be a privacy cryptocurrency. Well, I mean, this is like really goes against the whole idea of what Firo is. It makes me wonder, like, why are you investing in, or like, into our project in the first place? But that is, I guess, still an option, right? We can say like, okay, let's just stop all privacy research. We'll continue just copying whatever privacy tag, and we'll build all this hype stuff. So yeah, this is just kind of like, as Eduardo said, right now we are losing our privacy, right? It's, central bank digital currencies are coming. What's happening in Australia is nuts, where you have all this like surveillance stuff. Money is now also being controlled. Our communications are being controlled. Like, I think in Australia, even the social media accounts, they're passing a law to say that you need to tie your national identity towards it, right? So, Gem ID, when at Firo NFTs project. You see, I already talked about that earlier, so you can zoom back later on. All right. Okay. So I've already talked about this. I hope that you understand why I feel that this is not the right idea. Just a quick recap, it would kind of dilute our focus. Secondly, it would really, really increase the attack surface. Privacy plus DeFi right now in its current state may not be a good idea. We also, would be competing against the incumbents with hundreds of millions of dollars at their disposal. And it's like, we are not set up to fight them, right? We are not, our team has been all built around privacy, right? And basically for the stuff that we do need, like decentralized exchanges, they can be achieved without, smart contract capability. So yeah, I hope that kind of explains it. So, okay, so a great thing, Elysium. How is Elysium going? So actually the Elysium code is complete. We have been doing some testing about it. We've been doing some fixes around it. But right now, we haven't been able to complete the testing purely because we are all trying to focus on getting InstantSend and FiroPow out, right? And we cannot be saying like Firo plus Elysium plus InstantSend all together, which would just overwhelm us. So we're like saying, okay, what's our priority right now? Our priority right now is to get FiroPow out and get the InstantSend ability out, and that will really, really improve the user experience, right? And what InstantSend allows is to kind of say that, within a couple of seconds, you don't even need to wait for a block confirmation. Those funds will be already available to spend and stuff like that. We'll see whether exchanges would support it, but our wallets would definitely support it. And this combined together with our chain, the chain locks technology, means that, like, we have single confirmation security. That means you don't need to wait for X confirmations, one confirmation, but even before the confirmation, you can already have a very, very high degree of certainty that your transaction is locked, which is the InstantSend ability. FiroPoW is also really important because, as you know, Firo's blockchain is maybe about 50, 60 gigs now. And still growing, right? Even if our transactions aren't like, in the thousands or whatnot. I think that's kind of a bloat. I mean, MTP was great for what it is when it was back then. But better technology has happened. And I just want to show you like how much of a difference it is. FiroPoW's or PropPoW, which is based off, right? It's basically a slight modification of PropPoW to be suited for Firo's blockchain. And what it does is 500 times, almost more than 500 times smaller than a MTP block. So you can kind of imagine how much better it is, right? Like that means now your blockchain is not going to be growing on top of that. How about the existing 50, 60 gigs? A lot of it is just the MTP proofs. We are looking to, not right now, maybe sometime next year, we'll be looking at ways to strip out the MTP proofs so that you don't need to keep the MTP proofs anymore, and your blockchain will be much smaller than 50 or 60 gig. I don't know how big it'll be, maybe 10 gigs or less. That would allow a lot faster syncing. So I'm personally very excited about this, and it would really, really improve, instead of waiting for you to download 60 gigs of data and stuff. And that's also a big thing, right? We want to make sure that Firo works well as a cryptocurrency. So, easy to send. You get the instant send. You get the single confirmation thing. You get a very fast thing. We want light wallets. We want mobile wallets. All of that is being worked today. So I hope that people kind of see the vision that we really, really want to be a good currency, and we are building the foundations of that right now. All right. Okay. All right. Let's see what else is on the agenda. What else was on the agenda? Okay. All right. Yeah. So first of all, before I go on, I've spoken a lot. What other questions do we have? So Lightning Goku asks, why not do small charity events? And Charles Hoskinson hype his project to sympathy. Charity events are always good. Yeah, I mean, like, we previously did the launch for like there was we donated to Binance to help to provide lunches to schools in Africa. But it is good publicity, but considering what our development fund is for, which is to build Firo and to make Firo the best, I don't know if it would be very responsible to put too much money into that. Unless you guys as a community want to help, then that's different, right? But I don't know if we should be using our development funds to be used for charitable purposes. All right. I mean, the community can decide elsewhere if we should dedicate some of our funds for charity and stuff like that. But I don't think that's what our development fund is for, and it is not as if we are receiving a very huge development fund, right? Okay, so I might have missed it, but what is the ETA for FiroPoW and mainnet? So FiroPoW, the work is done. It's actually already fully tested. Miners are actually, so we have Minpon's already ready. I believe the other pools would be ready as well. We also have T-Rex miner already has a working FiroPoW miner. Team Red Miner says they will definitely have a working like optimized miner for AMD. So I think on the miner side and FiroPoW, that's totally like settled. We can actually launch it like, like 2 weeks time, but we aren't doing that only because we're testing InstantSend now. And InstantSend is currently on the DevNet. So there's like DevNet, testnet, and mainnet, right? So we already have a DevNet that we're testing InstantSend. It seems to work very well. There's just some like, GUI elements that we're correcting. I would get an update from my developers on Monday. So yeah, I am trying to aim for a mid-October release. So yeah, that's actually mid to third week of October. I know there's some delay, but I don't want to do like FiroPoW hard fork then InstantSend hard fork together. We want to have it together. So I really hope for your patience. And I know that we are slightly late, but we want to have a well-tested product, right? The last thing we want is some other vulnerability and stuff like that. So I hope that answers that question. When Firo ATM card, what will the Spark address look like? Same like now. The address would just be like, a string of like, I don't know, like 100 characters or so. 96 characters or so of like random stuff. It'll just, it doesn't really matter how long it is because everyone's just going to cut and paste it. And you can also, it's short enough to appear on the QR code. So that's kind of how it looked like. We haven't decided exactly how it would look like. But it's not going to be as short as the current Firo addresses. It's a lot longer, but doesn't really matter because you're going to be cut and pasting anyway, right? I don't know who of you still kind of like one by one types a Bitcoin address and stuff like that. So even if it's like 100 characters long, I don't think there's an issue there. Yeah, Cyanide, we could organize something as a whole community. I really like this type of initiatives, right? We would really want to see this type of things. Okay, so on the subject of ATM cards and debit cards or credit cards. This is a possibility. We've been approached by several companies that do this. And the amount that they're asking for is not trivial, right? They're asking for anywhere between 30 to 80,000 US dollars, which is a lot of money for us. So this is something that I want to kind of Sachin. Okay, I'm not going to answer those like really generic questions. That's I think I've actually already spent like a good hour almost talking about why we do what we do. So you can always track back later. So what was I saying? Oh, on the debit cards, right? So right now, just kind of like a rough idea of how much we get. So today we are getting about 100,000 US dollars a month to run almost all the operations for Firo. It sounds like a lot, but when you consider how many developers that we have and the costs that we have, so I really want everyone to kind of know. This is one of the things that we have on our agenda, which is called funding. And I have seen a lot of stuff like, why don't we pay for this? Why don't we pay for this? Why don't we pay for that? I want to show you how much money we have and how, although it sounds like a lot, it's not that much. Okay, so let's just do some rough math, right? Okay, so just on a very pure, like, let's pay salaries alone, right? Okay, and salaries can be from as low as like your support staff, maybe $2,000, $3,000, or something in between, right? Okay, and then you have your developers, which are 3,000 up to 15,000 US dollars a month, right? And we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like, okay, let's say we have around like 10 full-time employees on our thing. If each of us are getting, let's say, average 5K, 4K or whatnot, right? You multiply that, that's already more than 50% of our entire budget gone, right? Yeah, exactly. 100K a month, that's the salary of one developer at Google, right? And this is kind of like amazing, right? We do this groundbreaking research, we develop cool stuff, but that's what 15% of the development of the block reward looks like right now, right? And we're really building this not to get rich. We're building this for you guys, right? So now just imagine, okay, we have this like 50 to 60% or even more of our funding that goes to paying developers. And then you have this side stuff that you need, market makers. Market makers cost anywhere between, the most cheapest would be 5K, which would be like really basic, and that's like on really, really like special stuff, up to 25,000, 30,000, or even 50,000 US dollars a month. That's market making, right? Ideally, we don't need market makers, but I think it's good to have them, right? So right now we're on the lower end of the scale. We are working with Efficient Frontier to help, make sure that our liquidity is looking healthy and stuff. And I think they're doing a good job, right? So that's another amount. Then you have to pay for the community costs. You have to pay for the infrastructure, our test nets, our developers. We have to pay outside developers. For example, when we are paying miners to develop our software, our reference software, that's not cheap as well. You want to get because although the work may not be there, these are very specialized developers that are in very, very high demand, and they are going to ask for a lot of money because everyone else is throwing money at them, right? So you have easily each month, 10, 20K outside payments of contractors and stuff like that. You have infrastructure and stuff like that. Then you also have integrations, right? So let's say you want to be integrated in a DEX, you want to be integrated into an exchange and whatnot. They generally want some sort of integration fee. Some have listing fees. Listing fees from the really I would say like trash exchanges would be asking for 0.1 to 0.2 Bitcoin to something like like several million US dollars for like the top tier 1 exchanges, right? Obviously we don't have like millions of dollars. I mean we got on Binance for free, right? So, and a lot of the stuff that we got on is because we are a good project, we had community support and we got in for free. But most other, just imagine that we are competing with other projects that have millions of dollars to pay for exchange listings. So similarly, this is kind of like something that you have to think about, right? So even as something as simple as, let's say, integrate with this, or like, as someone said, integrate with this ATM card or debit card, you end up paying, 50, 30,000 US dollars. So now that's in that perspective. And audits, right? Audits cost anywhere between 10 to 100 over $1,000. So as the project steward, I have to balance all of this and also protect against price drops, right? Like if Firo drops to $4, what do I do? Where do I cut? And stuff like that. So I hope people understand that, you cannot be expecting us as this development team to do everything. Like when marketing, do you know how much YouTube influencers cost to cover, let's say, a single video? Let's say that's not organic, right? Like for example, like people like Coinscape, they just covered us for free. We didn't even ask them. It was organic coverage, and those are the best coverage, right? While those paid coverage would be asking for mid-tier influencers. People say, why not more influencers? One video would be 5,000 US dollars. You also saying like, get people to tweet 1 Ethereum per tweet. Okay, so I'm being very transparent here because I want people to know the real situation, right? And why projects like Monero can kind of like get by is because they've already reached a certain size and the community is willing to talk about it, to cover it on their own accord. So if you don't want us, because if you don't, a lot of people don't like the dev fund and say, oh, it's centralized, is to get rich and stuff like that. So we don't have that money, right? We are not getting rich off this. I just want everyone to kind of know how our funding is being spent and why we are so we cannot be spending millions of dollars for this and this and this and this and this. We have to be very frugal and concentrate, right? So like, for example, yes, I could have been paying influencers to cover Firo. Maybe that might have been the right way. Or should I have been spending my money to develop Lelantus Spark, right? And Lelantus Spark is like, this is groundbreaking stuff that may even like change the whole face of privacy cryptocurrency. Do I spend money on this or a one-time crypto influencer? Nothing wrong with influencers, but with the limited kind of resources that we have, we need to decide, right? So I hope that everyone kind of understands the thing that we are facing, and hopefully when the price increases, we would have more budget to do more things. We do aim to be transparent about how we spend the money. Of course, we cannot say exactly how much because we are, subject to NDAs or like, confidentiality agreements when we pay integration fees and stuff like that. But I've already given you all the ranges of money, so you roughly know where everything is. So I hope people kind of understand where we're getting at. All right. So for the DeFi bridges, we are looking at like AnySwap. Apparently the work has already been done. I'm not sure why it's taking so long for them to integrate. It's already done. It would allow us to bridge into server changes. recently Knit Finance, integrated us, which is like a custodial solution or wrap solution to go into several different multi-chains. And I know there were some people that Eduardo, yeah, really, we would really appreciate that. If you're in Telegram or Discord, please shout out. We would really love that. What was your question, Fikri? Sorry. What was the question? I'm scrolling back to try and see. What purpose of rename a masternode? It's like Firo will change the rules of the structure of the MN. Okay, all right. I think that's a good question. So I think I already covered like the budget and stuff like that. I just want people to know like the realities on the ground. That we are not here to get rich, and that I also have to make sure that I'm paying my developers enough so that they don't get headhunted. And it is a very competitive space. So I hope people understand that although we're getting 100K a month, it's not a lot. But so Fikri, your question is what on the agenda we say rename of masternodes. All right, so I think this is a good thing. I haven't actually opened a forum chat on this, but this is something that that I've been kind of thinking about, and I want to kind of assess people's opinions on this, right? So previously we called it Z nodes, right? Because like Zcoin and then nodes or Z nodes, right? Which was kind of cool. But then we decided, we had a community discussion, and then I can't really remember, but I think we agreed to use masternodes, and also because the code was already all masternodes, to change it in the code is going to be a lot of work. But the idea of masternodes has some negative connotation, right? So you know how like people talk about ICOs, like, oh yeah, remember the 2017 ICOs, or remember the time of masternodes where every other project was running masternodes and stuff like that, right? Because Dash started it, and there were like hundreds of projects of masternodes, everyone promising passive income, even though the masternodes didn't really do much. Of course, now our masternodes like provide chain security, they will provide InstantSend and all of this, so they are a critical part of the network. But back then it was all about, before there was the DeFi, the APY and all this like yield farming. This was like the yield farm then, right? Everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm going to get like 20-30% per annum. This is great passive income, blah, 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 right? And right now that's kind of like out of favor, right? And the whole idea of master, slave, master, servant, I don't know if that's a very, like, unlike Dash or other things which use the master nodes for voting, so maybe you can call them master. But then ours, we intentionally don't want to have voting on it, right? Because we think coin voting is a way to just have whales to dictate whatever they want to do. So I don't know whether we should really call them master nodes. I mean, we can call them infrastructure nodes, service nodes, or something like that. This is just, it's not really important, but it's just more on the branding standpoint. We are not going to be changing like the internal workings of how it is, and in code we'll just be keeping it as master nodes, just because that it's easier to maintain upstream. But it's just something to think about. Should we be using the word master nodes? I personally don't really like the idea of master nodes, and I don't feel great like saying master nodes about it. So I think something like service node, infrastructure nodes, even Firo nodes or something like that might be an idea. Yeah. So open to anyone to discuss. Of course, you can express your opinion now. Obviously, I think we'll open a forum thread later, or maybe one of our community managers can do that, and that would be a good thing to discuss. All right. What else? We have lots of stuff to cover. We talked about Elysium. Okay, mobile wallet. I think it's already, I'm not going to talk too much about it because it's already covered in the development update. I should be getting an internal test build with almost all functionality in the next couple of days. So hopefully that's good, and hopefully in a month or so we can get a release. But stay patient. We're working on it. It's looking quite good. We also have this side project of a little endless runner game No, it does not involve NFTs, but it would involve Firo. I think let's keep that as a surprise, right? I've already kind of like given a lot of clues about what that is. Dex integration. So, you know, we previously talked about Torchain. We previously talked about certain other DEXs to be integrated with and stuff like that. Now, I've been actually really thinking about this, and the way that I like Torchain. I mean, although like recently they've been like experiencing issues. I think they were like hacked like 4 times in a single month, which kind of illustrates the kind of complexity of this type of systems and how risky it can be, right? Yes, a fake so it's only changing the name. We're not changing any of the fundamentals of Masternodes. So back to the like Torchain, like you would have to, you know, have a certain number of rune. We have to sort of guarantee a certain number of liquidity and stuff like that. And it's a constant competition with other projects to stay in the 100 coins that Torchain allows. And although I like the idea of Torchain, and I do think that is good, I'm just thinking, like, you know, whether it is a good bet. I mean, considering that, you know, first of all, like the hacks is a real risk, right? The complexity is another risk. We have to then have rune exposure. It's a lot, right? It's a lot of money on a huge bet on one ecosystem, right? While something like Atomic Dex, hopefully, I've been trying to push the Atomic Dex team to speak with us, and hopefully I'll have a call with them sometime next week. Atomic Dex is, you know, you don't need any native tokens, right? You can list any pair, right? The only thing that we can even host our own like infrastructure, right? We don't have to rely on anyone else, like, or fixed validator nodes. It uses atomic swap capability, right? And the code's open source. Everything is ready for us to use. All we need to do is to have some sort of market making solution to build liquidity on these DEXs. And I also want to sort of illustrate the difference between order book based DEXs and what we call automated market makers like PancakeSwap, Uniswap, or even something like Torchain. Now, you know, AMMs, automated market makers, were a great idea, and they were very hot, right? And even now it's still quite big. But what was I saying? Automated market makers are not capital efficient, right? Because they distribute the liquidity across the entire curve, right? And what that means is that only a small portion of your liquidity is used between the like plus 2%, minus 2%. The rest is like, you know, distributed at the plus 10%, but it's like sort of unlimited liquidity, right? So that means if I say I want it so that people can buy like, you know, 50,000 US dollars with very little slippage on an AMM, I would need to have like a few $100,000 worth of liquidity or more to actually enable that. That's actually like a lot of money just like locked on the AMM, and that tends to also get arbitraged out as people like, you know, arbitrage the difference between the AMM between the decentralized exchange and the centralized exchange. Now, compared to order book DEXs, for example, stuff like Atomic Dex. Atomic Dex is actually, that means what happens is that the liquidity, I can choose where I want to put my liquidity. So I only want to put the liquidity in within the plus 5%, minus 5%. And let's say if I have a few $100,000, I'm going to just place it all there. So that means we're building very, very deep liquidity right between the parts that really matter, not the parts where may not be hit at all. So I do think that is much more capital efficient. And that means I don't need to, you know, put millions of dollars to get a minimal, and it's like a lot of control. So all we want to do is to make sure that the DEX can perform at scale. And if you take a look, you know, a lot of these AMM providers are realizing this, And that's why like Uniswap is coming out with Uniswap version 3, which has like different curves and that you can like configure stuff, but it gets really, really complex. And you're like, why bother? Just use a freaking order book system, because I don't really need a smart contract system if something like Atomic Dex works. So yeah, I hope that kind of explains why we're going to be trying to build Atomic Dex. And sure, it does not have the brand name as the rest, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. If we build it within our wallet, we can build liquidity there, they will come. And as far as I know, when I speak the Atomic Dex, right now you have to download an Atomic Dex like client. Soon they're building like with that you can function within the browser. So I think that would be really, really good and stuff like that. Okay, so all right, so I think that covers Dex integrations. I've covered direction, I covered Lelantus Spark, I covered FiroPoW and InstantSend, rename of Masternode, mobile wallets, Elysium. Okay, so another thing about so we have entered into an advisory agreement with Lightnode Media. So Lightnode Media is an up and coming company. They actually recently hosted the privacy and privacy conference that I spoke at. I didn't know who they were before, but they invited me, and then I came, and then after that we had a discussion, and we decided to give it a shot to work with each other. And the idea of getting Lightnode Media is okay, hang on, I feel like I want to sneeze. Cat is making me itchy. Okay, so the idea behind the partnership of not partnership, the advisory agreement between Lightnode Media and us is that we want to have oh, sorry. Okay, now I feel better. We want to have a presence in the US. So Lightnode Media is based in the US. They have very good connections in the US. And we will be gearing and building up our team to have more US people to gain credibility to look for a US listing. Of course, yes, the other way is to go through Dex integrations with Atomic Dex and stuff like that. But I do think that we cannot ignore the centralized exchange. We have seen many, many times on the social media, on Reddit, on our Telegram forums, many people asking, saying that, where can I buy Firo in the US? And right now, the only place that you can do it is Bittrex, which, isn't as good as an exchange that we would like. We would like to get on stuff like Coinbase, FTX, or Gemini, one of these like sort of like tier 1, tier 2 US exchanges. Binance US maybe, but we ideally will try to diversify a bit, right? Binance is great, but they've been under a lot of regulatory pressure. May not be great to kind of put all eggs in one basket. So this is something that we're actively trying. We don't know whether it will succeed or not. We want to build like our team to have gain credibility, to gain access to funds and stuff like that, because as you can see, all our team is almost not based in the US, and we would really like that kind of go in. They have very strong Johns Hopkins University connections. So Johns Hopkins University is a very good university. Matthew Green's from there, Parman's from there, Ian Mears is from there. So they have a very strong cryptography background. They have a lot of respect. I think it's considered Ivy League for this type of stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong. And we would like to kind of leverage their help to kind of break into the US market. Remains to be seen if that will happen, but we have heard you, and we are making efforts to break into the US market, especially where we think that privacy is a lot more, much bigger issue there. So yes, this is one of the strategies that Lightnode is doing, and they're also leveraging their own networks. Thinking about how can we break into the NFT scene. Not that we're building NFTs alone, but how that we can collaborate, meaningful partnership, stuff like that. So they will be assisting with all of these things. So that's great. So I think I covered almost everything that I want to talk about. We've been going on for about 1 hour 15 minutes. Let me see what questions that I have missed. Okay, Fami has asked, Reuben, is it possible to enable a Masternodes that have voting rights as well as for on-chain governance? Again, I've actually mentioned this. I really think that this is on-chain governance is generally a bad idea. Even Vitalik has said that on-chain governance by way of coin voting is a way to have fake governance, which is basically, that means the whales control everything. So I don't think that's a good idea. We have seen this happen in Dash and other projects where basically it's just a few group of people that's calling the shots and voting everything in. And, you know, the real way to see whether people care about the project is people voting and expressing and taking the time to express their opinion, to come to these meetings, to come into our forums, to talk about their opinion, right? To justify. So I do prefer that, you know, eventually maybe we'll have some sort of like, you know, on-chain governance and stuff like that. But right now, in my opinion, the current versions of on-chain governance out there is almost like fake governance, right? It's almost like the rich dictate what goes, and it's almost akin to saying that people like Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and Warren Buffett should govern the whole thing. And you can trust that rich people will vote for themselves to become richer. I think that's what happens. And like, for example, I think, you know, last year when Firo was constantly being dumped, that was the effect of a seed investor not getting his way, right? He wanted to increase the masternode collateral by 5 times, from 1,000 to 5,000 Firo, to centralize all the masternode holdings into his group of friends and control. We said that we as the core team were like, yeah, even though you're a seed investor, we're going to ask our community on this. And you guys voted to say, no, you don't want that change. We honored that. And yeah, I think, yes, we suffered for a year plus with the constant dumping over and over and over and over again throughout the whole year. He probably owned about more than 10% of the supply at one point. Not through our reward, but he had also acquired because he basically wanted control of the project. And I mean, like, you know, that being said, even though he was an evil investor, I do think that he actually cared about Firo's direction, but his vision of Firo and ours didn't align, and ultimately it's the community that decides it. So I hope people understand, like, you know, kind of like the troubles that we went through, and understand that if we had on-chain governance, that he was also pushing for on-chain governance, because he knew that if he had on-chain governance, what would have happened is that he would have voted to say, masternodes are now 5,000 Firo. All the small people, all the people that have held Zcoin from all-time high to, you know, $3 would now say, oh, suddenly I don't have a masternode. That would just wipe out all these small people, centralize control into like a couple of few, and they will continue to be able to vote in their favor, right? So, you know, even though I also own, you know, a lot of nodes, right? I don't want that, right? I don't want this to be like a centralized project, because if that's the case, then why do I bother with mining? We might as well, like, you know, do one of those you know, like pre-sale type of deals where I can allocate like 30% to the team and 60% to exchanges and blah blah blah. So I hope people understand this and why on-chain governance, especially for simple coin voting, would be a very bad idea. This project would have turned into almost like another EOS, I would say. Yeah. Let me see. Costa has asked, have you considered making a Firo wallet via USSD that would work offline for the phone? I'm not very familiar with USSD. Could you educate me on that? Okay, so let's see. Airdrop, no. Rising prices, okay. What about Captain Jack Sparrow? Okay. Can we get a bridge to Harmony network for liquidity? Any particular reason why? they're not the largest network. I mean, if it would cost, I mean, like right now we are looking at Atomic Dex, we're looking at Torchain. We have also approached Avalanche. Yeah, there are costs and development time involved. So any sort of bridge, we really have to think about it clearly, right? Because like even when we were speaking to Ren, remember when we were looking at a Ren integration, originally, you know, it was like, oh yeah, you know, you guys just submit your PR, we did all the work that on our end, and then you guys should get in. The next thing, they changed the terms to say now there's a minimum of 50,000 US dollars, but most other projects are paying more. We will prioritize based on integration fees. So yeah, I just want people to be aware the amount of money that's slushing around. We need Firo Cash a minute. I don't know. I mean, I don't know even if Bitcoin ATMs have really taken off, and it's a very huge hardware investment. I mean, we can probably work with a hardware vendor that will also have an integration fee, maybe $20,000-$30,000 or so. What is Elysium or PropWell can to use Indonesian language? I'm not exactly sure what that means. My nose is very itchy. Apologies. Hey, Makondra. Yeah, I mean, definitely anytime. So yeah, if there aren't any more questions, I think we've gone on for almost 1.5 hours and my nose is acting up. But I'll be happy to take more questions. I'm sorry that we missed this community meeting. I think we missed like maybe one or 2 months of this because we've been like so hard at work. I've been kind of burnt out, and I mean, I know it's a poor excuse, but yeah, we will. I feel like this format is a lot easier for me. I don't have to prepare so much, and I think it's much more transparent and open. So, I would like to know, like, do you like this format, or do you prefer like the Discord ones, or that we had? What else would you like to see from us? Also, please, if you haven't done so, please, like and subscribe to our channel. Like the videos, subscribe to our channel. It does help to grow. Hopefully, we can grow our YouTube channel. We've also engaged a team to build 12 TikTok videos as a sort of a experiment. To kind of expose ourselves to a new, just not talk with the crypto people. We want to talk with new people, new investors who are interested in crypto. The TikTok would actually not be. Some of you have saw Nina. Nina was appearing earlier in one of her videos. Hopefully, we can do more of that. But she'll be the one that will be appearing in this TikTok videos. So yeah. I think that should be interesting. Remember, we won't be always talking about Firo on those videos. It'll be more of like, general like cryptocurrency questions, like what's the difference in a hardware wallet or soft cold storage, or hot wallets and stuff like that. And we want to kind of like, build ourselves as an authority in the space, and also like slip in Firo from time to time, talking about mining, talking about privacy and stuff like that. And yeah, I definitely like this format a lot better as well. I think also, yeah, it's a lot easier for me. All right, thank you so much. Expenses is a bummer, though the experience on Harmony has been smooth so far, as well as the bridge to Terra has been good too. Maybe a gateway to multiple chains in the future. Okay, definitely, we'll take a look at it. I don't know if we have a contact with Harmony, but definitely we can something to look at. Yeah. So yeah, I think we've covered so much today. I hope we've answered all your questions, and We're also looking for someone technical that can also, like, I guess, like, speak at instead of just me appearing on the time. Remember, I think, I'm a lawyer by training. It would be good for our credibility if someone with a technical or cryptography background would really like to do that. Yeah. So instead of just me, we would have someone with more credibility. So we're also in the lookout for people like that, or people who come on as advisors to join our team with that kind of background. So that's also what Lightnode Media has been assisting us with. So yeah, live gaming again, please, and airdrop Firo. Yeah, I really don't want to make these community meetings, like, full of airdrops and stuff like that, because I think it makes people attend for the wrong reasons. I want people who care about the project, who really want to find out about us and ask to attend these projects, rather than to sit around and earn some airdrops. Yeah. But definitely, we'll put some envelopes later on. No promises, but yeah. Okay, so we've reached the almost the 1.5 hour mark, and this stream will be available later on. Please remember to like and subscribe. I should have mentioned that from the beginning. We also have a Telegram announcement channel on Firo News. Also, like, really interesting, I mean, on the side note, that we've been trending on CMC and crypto.com, so that's been pretty cool as well. So yeah, I really hope that our community can grow. And hello, Elvo Lampis. And I guess if there are no other questions, we're very open. So unless you just post in any of our Telegram chats, we'll do our best to answer and stuff like that. Right. So have a good weekend, everyone. Stay safe during these tough times, and thank you so much for attending this meeting and supporting Firo, because without you guys, we're doing this for everyone, and we really, really appreciate the support. I'm really happy with the turnout today. So thank you very much, guys.